Financial Argument. Follow us on YouTube.
Hey everyone, this is Elijah Johnson with FinanceAndLiberty.com, and with us today is Arthur Thompson, the CEO of the John Birch Society. Arthur, thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure.
All right, well, I'd first like to discuss a little bit about the presidential election cycle. Now, recently you put out a video on your YouTube channel about how, while a lot of people are saying this is the craziest election season ever, you said that we really haven't seen anything yet in this presidential election cycle. Did you want to talk a little bit about this?
Well, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but it's obvious that the powers that be don't want certain individuals on the ticket. There are all sorts of things that they can do. They have a very large hand of cards that they can play depending on how things go. But my experience, for instance, in the Republican Party over the years has been one of, from behind the scenes, watching the things that have been taking place, where they will deny any constitutional conservative from gaining power within the party or on a national ticket. They will do anything to prevent that. Most of the time, if they do it at convention, that sort of thing, the delegates will very rarely understand what's going on unless they have very astute leadership. And by astute, I don't mean just simply book knowledge, but a lot of experience in politics to understand how they manipulate things. And they can do a lot of that. They can come in and change the rules. There's really no rules that are covered by law. It's all covered by the national committees of the parties. And so as long as the national committee of the party will go along with something, then the states can do just about anything they wish. And they can even have challenges from the states. I'm surprised that there hasn't been that one crop up. In the past, they have had rump conventions or claiming foul play at a state convention or whatever, and go to the national convention with a minority or an alternative group of delegates, saying that, well, they did this and they did that and they didn't follow the rules and this happened and that happened, and you get bogged down into trying to determine who is the real one and who is the fake one, and honest and dishonest, so on and so forth. So all those sorts of things can happen. You just don't know.
Why do you think that the establishment seemed to be attacking Trump so much?
Well, I believe it's for one reason, primarily. And that one reason is something that Mr. Trump has never deviated on that I know of in the last 20 years. I mean, you can look at Trump's history and say he's changed his mind on an awful lot of things. Now, are these a paradigm shift? Are they sincere or not? But the one thing that he has always been adamant about is the unfair trade practices and NAFTA. And this is a very important part of the agenda of the individuals who mean to rule us. We in the John Birch Society say it's a conspiracy, and if anybody can sit down for long enough, we can pretty much prove it to them. And the thing is that part of that agenda that they have is this so-called free trade movement. Now, it's not really free trade. Anybody that knows anything about government, if government is involved in a trade deal, it cannot be free trade in the classic sense of the term. Be that as it may, free trade can simply be a single sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper whereon is written, "We, the undersigned, promise not to interfere with the businessmen from our country doing business with the businessmen from your country." And that would be free trade. But you've got 5,000 pages plus in the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership deal. But it isn't the trade aspects that are the real serious problem. Now, it's serious enough for the guy in Detroit or Pittsburgh or anywhere else who's out of work and has no chance of getting work again if these deals go through, at least not at the pay grade that he once enjoyed. So that to that individual is very serious. And it's serious from the standpoint of having an industry capable of producing and manufacturing things for our United States military with which to defend us. But the paramount problem with these treaties, and that's really what they are, is that it destroys the sovereignty of the United States increasingly by hamstringing our ability as a free and independent people to make up our own mind about our own economy and our own constitution. Because we're placed in a position where we are simply one vote within a number of other countries' votes that really want to denude us of our wealth. And, it's interesting. They want to destroy the United States, but they also want to come here before they do it. But that is really the whole thing. It's a destruction of the sovereignty of the United States. They need to do that in order to merge us first into regional governments and then into what they call their New World Order. And the North American Union is part of that. And these trade deals are part of it. In fact, the North American Union is to be, but we think we can prevent it, but it is intended to be on the platform of NAFTA. If you looked at the history of NAFTA and the articles that were written and the books that were written, particularly by Henry Kissinger prior to the vote on NAFTA, he said this is a new governmental system, goes way beyond trade. And he was right. And he said it's the best opportunity we have to implement the New World Order, his words. And this was in the Los Angeles Times, July, I believe it was, of the year the vote was taken on NAFTA. And he was very open. When he said it, it was, oh yes, that's very knowledgeable. Thank you very much. We appreciate your advice. But when the John Birch Society approached members of Congress and said, this is part of the New World Order, they said, kook, you don't know what you're talking about. But I think a lot of people have looked at NAFTA from the standpoint of jobs and industry and not really looked at NAFTA from what it has done to the United States court system and our economy as a whole, the environmental laws, and so on and so forth. The Supreme Court of the United States is no longer, for instance, the Supreme Court of the United States. We have courts above the Supreme Court now because of NAFTA, the court system that's in there. These are things that are sort of behind the scenes, and the American people don't notice it. So when it comes to business practices across the border, even manufacturing and the use of certain products and labeling and everything else are being taken out of our hands, and we can't even sue in regards to that. It has to go to an international court that's set up within NAFTA. So I hope that kind of begins to lay the groundwork for the problems with these trade treaties.
Definitely. And the thing that you've said before, is that the powers that be, the reason they haven't solved the immigration problem is not because they're just stupid and don't know what to do about it. It's because they're ignoring it intentionally because they don't want to solve the immigration problem. They don't want borders because they want, as you call it, the North American Union. And, Trump is kind of a nationalist. He wants to build borders. He wants to, have America be first. Now, also, it seems like Cruz has talked about building a border between the U.S. and Mexico. I guess my take is it doesn't make sense that establishment Republicans then are endorsing Ted Cruz. I guess why do you think that establishment Republicans are endorsing Cruz right now if he seems to want to, solve the immigration problem?
Well, let me first of all, before I answer that, just make a statement that we in the John Birch Society do not endorse any candidate. And sometimes it sounds like we are because we disseminate information about people so that the electorate will have a very good handle on what decision to make on their own. But Cruz, I think that the insiders or establishment, whatever label you want to put on them, are endorsing Cruz for a number of different reasons. The first and paramount reason, of course, is to stop Trump. The second one is based on Heidi Cruz, Ted Cruz's wife, Rafael Cruz's wife, that her connection with the insiders is far more than what a lot of people have been told. For instance, she served on the committee with Dr. Robert Pastor on the Council on Foreign Relations while she was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations for 5 years and helped write the North American Union Accord. And she said that she disagreed with it and all that, but I have the book wherein it says that according to the Council on Foreign Relations, she agreed with the general premise of the North American Union, not in those words because they hated that term. They called it the North American Community. And the only objection that she had, because she worked for the mega banks, was that she wanted to say that the North American Union banking regulations should basically be regulated by the banks themselves. That the government shouldn't set the policy for the banks, that the banks should do all of that. And that was her only objection. So everything else, environmentalism and the merging of police power, healthcare, and everything else, merging of healthcare throughout the whole system, she apparently agreed with. So being a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, which is a one world organization who believes that the economy should be managed by government, this one world government. In other words, in a word, it's socialism. You have to be sponsored by at least 2 other members to join that organization. Then you go before it goes before a membership committee, and you're vetted before you're even allowed to become a member. So apparently they liked what they saw, and she became a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. And they said, well, she's only an interim member. Well, interim members, she was in there for 5 years. And it was only until Ted Cruz started to think about the presidency that membership was terminated either by them or by her. And so there's no indication it was done by the committee, but it was done by her. So, you've got a connection to this very establishment through Ted Cruz's wife. So that might be another reason why that they feel that they can work with Ted Cruz. Another thing is that, 2+ years ago, Ted Cruz was all in favor of this process of the North American community and the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and stated so in letters to his constituents when he first became elected. And so now he gets up in debates and says, well, I never supported the TPP. Well, technically he may be right in its final form, but in the process of putting it all together, he supported it. And so if he's changed his mind, that's great. God bless him, that's great. But why say that he never supported it? Because it sends a different signal than what the spirit of that is. In spirit, he did support it. So there are things like that that why they can support him. Another thing is that they can just simply use Cruz to throw the whole system into turmoil and bring in somebody that they want. Another thing that they might be able to do is to give the nomination to Cruz, and then because of his birth, they may be able to find a friendly federal judge that says, I'm sorry, you're not a natural-born citizen, you're off the ballot. And then that throws it into turmoil, and the Republican National Committee gets to play games with who's the nominee, which will probably be the vice presidential nominee, and they'll slip somebody else in there to be the new vice presidential nominee. So all sorts of things like that may happen as a result. The interesting thing that I find relative to the birth natural birth situation is that it was Hillary Clinton, her people that originally were the birthers. They were the ones that brought up the natural-born citizenship of Barack Obama in order to try and win Hillary the nomination for president 8 years ago. And so what do you think Hillary will do with the birth of Cruz? Now, the thing is, the birther movement got so big that they finally, we believe, faked a birth certificate in Hawaii to make it look as though Barack Obama was born of an American citizen, the mother, on American soil. Well, there's no pretext of that at all with Cruz. Everybody admits that he was born of an American citizen on Canadian soil of a Canadian citizen father. And yet the same people that chastise Obama on the conservative side, a big hunk of them, are now saying, and so what's your problem? They look, at Obama as being bad and Cruz being good, and so we're just going to change our opinion on natural-born birth. Now, I believe that natural-born birth should be put to bed once and for all. This has come up more than once, and it's going to keep coming up unless we find some method of determining what natural-born citizen is, and it's written in stone, so that only an individual who is, by that law, eligible to run as a natural-born citizen will do so, and we won't keep having these debates. So those are a number of different things of why they might be supporting Cruz right now, but they can switch, in a heartbeat, and get behind somebody else or whatever.
What is your perspective if they go to the convention, no one has enough delegates, or somehow, they don't nominate Trump, or and an establishment candidate like Kasich or Paul Ryan or someone like that gets nominated, so it's not Trump or Cruz who gets nominated. What is your perspective on how the public would react going into the general election? Would Republicans get behind that establishment Republican, or would it just be a landslide for Hillary Clinton?
Well, you can beat the Hillary horse an awful lot and scare people into voting for just about anybody but her. We haven't talked about the fact either that, they may throw her to the wolves too if it gets too much relative to her, the corruption and in the Clintons, and likewise the email controversy. But at any rate, the thing is that if that sort of thing happens, the scenario that you bring up, I can guarantee one thing that will happen for sure, and that is the tremendous demoralization of the average American citizen who wants good government. A lot of them are out there, they're voting in numbers that they haven't voted for in the primaries before, and a lot of people are very concerned, et cetera. But if you kick them in the gut with a thing like that, they will be angry at first, but then the next thing is demoralization. They'll throw up their hands and they'll say, well, it's all over. There's nothing you can do about it, and never participate again. I've seen that happen in waves in the past. But usually it's been done by the organizations themselves, and I don't need to get into that, but we don't have that much time to develop that thought. But it will demoralize a huge segment of the best citizens in our country, and it will even accelerate some of the problems, I'm afraid, with bad government because of it.
Now, what do you see happening because I know you've said you're not sure if the establishment is going to be able to stop Trump from reaching the 1237 delegates needed for nomination. So if Trump gets that many delegates, do you think they're going to go ahead and nominate Trump, or do you think they can technically change the rules and do whatever they want? So what are your thoughts? Do you think they're still going to try to change the rules and maybe even deny delegates or say Trump didn't actually get these delegates, or what do you see happening if Trump does get enough delegates?
Well, if he gets close, he will still be able to go talk to people about changing, just like Cruz has done. I think, if he gets within 50, for instance, I think they'll be able to find 50 delegates that will switch their vote from Rubio or Kasich or somebody, and the bandwagon effect has a certain amount of momentum. But you bring up a number of very interesting things, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier about challenging certain delegations. That is entirely possible. The other thing is there is a certain amount of voter fraud involved in all of this. And if they could, for instance, even expose their own minions who have committed this fraud in order to cast aspersion on the entire delegation from a particular state or congressional district, they could probably even do that. Say it was done fraudulently. It wouldn't matter who it was for or against or anything else. All they have to prove is fraud. Once they prove fraud, then it throws the whole thing into disarray and challenges the entire vote. So they might do that as well. But usually what they will do is, and if they keep to pattern, what they will do is continue to issue propaganda to demean in this case, Trump, to the point where they can get away with doing some shenanigans behind the scenes to where no one will really question them too much because, after all, they got rid of this jerk. I mean, that will be the general attitude. That's what they will try to do. The problem with that this time, however, will be that the American people have pretty much seen through, or at least a sizable number of the people have seen through all these shenanigans and propaganda and so forth, and do recognize that the Republican Party is not a squeaky clean entity, and that the press does a lot to destroy anyone who really puts America first, and so on and so forth. So they're going to have to be very careful. The other thing is, too, if they have a threat of a third party, that may make it a bit of a sticky wicket, too. The third party probably would have more promise during this election cycle than any other cycle that I've witnessed in my lifetime. There was the American Party at one time. It got as much as 7.5% in some states, but that was rare. They did have a candidate that could have gone on to be elected, but he was shot, and that was George Wallace. But then he was shot when he became a Democrat instead of an American Party candidate. But at any rate, there's all sorts of things that can happen. The problem is we're not in control of it. They are. And so we have to just kind of watch and see and react as a result. Now, I mean the American people.
Recently, you've talked about how what the GOP establishment is doing today to try to stop Trump reminds you of what George Romney and Nelson Rockefeller did to destroy the candidacy of Barry Goldwater.
Yes.
Did you want to discuss a little bit about this?
Well, first of all, what happened was that George Romney was a real enemy of the John Birch Society, did everything he could to try and destroy the John Birch Society as governor of the state of Michigan. It got so bad that our founder, Robert Welch, wrote a letter, an open letter, and it was distributed quite widely throughout the country, but particularly within the state of Michigan. George Romney went on from there within a matter of a couple of months to start attacking Goldwater, and he and Nelson Rockefeller teamed up to try to do everything they could to prevent Goldwater getting the nomination, and if they could not do that, to prevent Goldwater from being elected. They did it in such a manner that it destroyed the image of the Republican Party and its candidates so much in the public mind that a good number of very good men and women were voted out of their seats in Congress, and some of those who were running to be elected, went down in flames. And they did everything they could. Everybody knows that Nelson Rockefeller was basically a socialist with a Republican robe on. As far as George Romney is concerned, and you can verify this online, you will see that he helped raise money for Saul Alinsky, the guy who organized all these community action organizations like Acorn and that sort of thing are based on Solinsky's model. He wrote the book Rules for Radicals. And that is so much out of the mainstream of the reputation of the Romney family, but there you are. Now, as far as I'm concerned, Mitt Romney has just taken over from his father. If you take a look at Obamacare, what was that modeled on? It was modeled on Romneycare, and a number of liberal things like that when Romney was governor. Romney is not a constitutional conservative. He is a pragmatic guy who will pretty much go any way he needs to in order to be elected. Although the last time you wondered if he really wanted to be elected, it was such a poor campaign. But that is those are the sorts of things that they will do. And if they can't stop Trump in any way, fashion, from the nomination, and he does get on the ticket, they will do the same thing to the Republican ticket as they did under Barry Goldwater, and try and destroy the whole idea of a Republican administration. See, because we're dealing with people who do not care about party, they care about ideology. And it does not matter to them which party wins as long as the ideology is advanced. And this is the thing that a lot of people don't understand. Many of the people at the top and donors for the Republican Party are not so much Republicans, whatever that means, as they are individuals promoting an ideology. And so they'll do anything to promote it.
Now, you were talking about, so even if Trump does get the nomination, they'll basically sabotage his chance of winning the White House. Now, you were also talking about, what about a third party run? And it seems to me, now, this might be a kind of wild scenario, but I've heard about how if, someone runs at the third party, if either, they nominate an establishment Republican at the convention and then Trump is frustrated and goes as a third party, or the other way around, where Trump gets nominated and then establishment Republicans have a moderate Republican run as a third party. There's a scenario in which no one, not Hillary, not Trump, not the other candidate, the establishment Republican, none of them gets 270, I think it is, electoral votes to become the president, and then the decision goes to Congress. What are your thoughts on that happening?
Well, I'd hate to see it go to Congress. The only time that I can recall, 2 times that it ever went to Congress, was the Hayes presidency and the Jefferson presidency. Jefferson and Aaron Burr tied, and it went to Congress with Hayes, and they really didn't know who won the election. Probably Hayes didn't win the election, but nonetheless it was given to him with the promise that federal troops would be withdrawn from the South and Reconstruction put to an end. Usually politics really gets messy when things like that get into Congress. And under the current Congress, I'm not sure what would happen, but I'm sure I can guarantee that Trump, if he, would not win. Hillary might, depending on who the third candidate is. I don't know. That would be really messy.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Arthur Thompson. I guess before I let you go, did you want to share with the viewers where they can find you online?
Oh, of course. You can go to JBS, John Birch Society, jbs.org. Or you can go to thenewamerican.com, which is our magazine, and you can sign up there, for instance, for our daily headlines. And every day, 5 articles from scratch are posted on that site. You get it on your mobile device or your home computer. But jbs.org is the home page for the John Birch Society.
Are there any last thoughts you'd like to leave with our viewers before we let you go?
Well, the only thing is I want to reiterate, because it sounds as though we're taking a position on who you should vote for because of the information we are giving out. But you can actually find out information on Trump that you're not going to like either. But the one thing that he has done over the years is this trade deal, and sovereignty to us is very important. So take a look at the facts before you vote, and then, we have trust in the American electorate once they're informed. And that's our job, is to inform them.
This video was brought to you in part by ReluctantPreppers.com. Click here to watch Reluctant Prepper's latest interview with Dr. Paul Byrne, MD. How aware and prepared are you really for this? Your loved one becomes unconscious and suddenly you find yourself pressured to consent to organ donation. But what the experts are not telling you is that organs only come from living donors who are dissected alive without anesthesia. Pioneering inventor of the preemie ICU and the preemie blood pressure systems and founder of the field of neonatology, Dr. Paul Byrne, MD, joins Reluctant Preppers to draw back the curtain and expose the medical industrial government collusion that will set your heart pounding and send you running to warn your loved ones. This one is not to be missed, and share it with everyone you care about.